Smooth 98.1 Smooth Breakfast. My name is Ayo Mairo Ese.
My name is Valentine Ohu.
And it is time for Freshly Pressed 981. It's our flagship show. For those who are listening earlier, I almost forgot. After 1 week away, I thought it was now time for me to remember the name. I was saying Business Express. But thank you so much for staying tuned. We're not alone. We have with us our analyst in studio. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, Uade. Good morning.
Good morning. Happy Children's Day.
Happy Children's Day to you. Now, Uade is at Ring Niger 2017, if you'd like to follow him on Twitter. Sitting beside him is Cheta. Good morning, Cheta.
Good morning.
How are you today?
I'm fine.
All right, so you can find Cheta at Chexter on Twitter, on social media if you'd like to follow him. And of course, we have Tunde. Morning, Tunde.
Morning, Ayo. Welcome back.
Thank you very much. Good to be back. Now, you can follow Tunde at Big Coofs on Twitter as well. You can follow us collectively on Twitter at Smooth91FM. We're on there live, and of course, other platforms you can join the conversation there.
Yes, on WhatsApp, sending in your message with on this number 08094440981. That is our WhatsApp number. On Twitter, like Ayo said, the hashtag is freshlypressed981. We're streaming live on YouTube. You can leave a message there. And happy birthday to Sammy. He's a 10th on the show.
Yes, happy birthday. And happy birthday to my husband, Mr. Mairo Ese. Happy forget
birthday.
Valentine.
I didn't. I expected you to.
Okay, we had to start on that very light note because we're starting quite heavy this morning. Unfortunate news. Tunde, I'll come to you for this first story. Sad news, missing Adebura's body found in Lagos Canal. Guardian reports this. Just in case you haven't heard, it was widely reported. Her poster was almost everywhere on social media. People talked about this missing young girl. 12 days after she has been declared, she was declared dead. 12 days after she was declared missing, her family have said that her dead body was allegedly found floating in the canal at the Yanokpaja area of Lagos State. Tunde, please take us through the story.
Yeah, it's very somber note. And when you look at the circumstances, or at least circumstances as we know them up until now, it's one of those reasons. It's one of those disheartening things, and one of those you put it down to the challenges, unnecessary challenges of living in Lagos, or living in a city like Lagos and Nigeria as a whole. But it is, look, so it's important. The story doesn't actually say the family have said or have identified the body, right? So this is still alleged, but let's go into the details because it's a very probable, it's very likely outcome. She was almost home, right? Yeah. She had spoken to her sister, and then she never arrived. And the details, and it echoes it has many parallels to something that's happened many years ago. She gets on a rickshaw, the tricycle. And there are many canals that crisscross our city, Lagos, right?
Yes.
And they're meant to channel water safely away, but many of them are clogged. The infrastructure has been expanded over years, so many of them can be very dangerous when we have heavy downpour.
Yes.
The rider was warned not to cross the canal at this point because the current was very strong. He goes ahead and attempts to make the crossing, and is swept away. It's the exact same thing happened on Akirele. There's a canal in Akirele beside Eko Hospital, and in 2011, when it happened, many incidents across the state. But people were swept away into that canal, and their bodies were found, and there was a child involved. Were found days after, right? So if that's what's happened to her, it's very sad. It's very, it just points to so many ills, so many things that are missing and gaps. We need to go beyond. But once in a while, the government makes its public service announcements when the rain starts and say, clear your gutters, do this and do that. But probably a bit more is happening. If these kind of situations keep happening, then even down to the level of education, of the riders, you begin to wonder, it's such an unregulated space.
The report actually says that the motorcyclist was discouraged from
trying to
proceeding
cross
further, but he still went
but
ahead.
they still go ahead. So there's one of you have to go beyond common sense. You have to go to education. You have to go to sensitization. That space is unregulated. It's only regulated for the purposes of taxation, right? Can we think of creative solutions? These guys that tax them, the NURTW guys that put people on the street to extract levies from these guys, can they do a bit more than just extracting levies? Can there be seminars? Can they can they
So
just
sensitization, awareness,
educate
yes.
these guys
Yeah.
on the risks of riding under certain conditions.
The motorcyclist survived. He
The
was
motorcyclist
rescued.
survived, unfortunately, which is
Well,
sometimes what happens. Well, it's good that life
it's
was
good,
saved.
yes.
When I say unfortunately, I'm saying sometimes when a rider or a driver goes into a dangerous situation,
Yes.
he sort of knows and is prepared, but his passengers are not.
Mhm.
So sometimes he has the way of getting away.
All right.
A few other points, because it's important to notice, her phone was picked up in signals for her phone were picked up in the Badagry. Let's note that the body hasn't actually been identified as hers.
Actually,
So-
Tunde, this report says that was tracked but wasn't found until 7 p.m. on Sunday when her family identified her body.
So family has
So
identified
they-
the body.
they did
so we're
mention
just
in the
waiting
report.
we're waiting for
For an
medical
official police
medical
report, yes.
Okay, great. I missed that part out because if it hasn't been officially identified,
Yeah.
then we can't immediately rule out that this might not be the lady because the phone was picked up in Badagry.
Badagry.
Maybe someone just picked it, maybe someone found it and picked it up and took it to
Took
Badagry.
it, yeah.
But
All right.
it's very unfortunate.
Thank you so much. We would have to move on very quickly, but if you'd like to find details on that, it's in the Guardian newspaper for this morning. Cheta, let's go on to insecurity. This day reports that the president, well, according to, they got their facts from the chairman of the Northern Governors Forum and the governor of Plateau State, Simon Bakolalong, who said that the president, Muhammadu Buhari, is set to meet 19 northern state governors in Abuja over the prevailing insecurity in the region. Please, can you take us through this story?
Meeting, no, that's fine. I mean, it's not the first time they're meeting, and it's not. It probably won't be the last. The key thing here is in identifying what the problems really are, and unfortunately, I don't believe that many people in our elites either have a handle on what the problems really are, why we have this sudden explosion in insecurity, or it's either that they don't have a handle on it or they frankly don't care and are just doing things like this just to while away the time. So let's start, since we are talking of northern governors, since it's northern governors that are meeting with the president,
Yes.
let's start with the fact that the governors are not really in charge of the security apparatus. That's on the president. There's only so much that the governors can do. Number two, even with the little that the governors are in charge of, the whole security vote thing is just a black box that is being used to share money. We are not really equipping our security forces properly. We're not really training them. We have a situation where we are now resorting to the use of the army. The Nigerian army is active in 34 states of our 36. Yet the insecurity is rising. It tells you a lot about what's really happening. Again, the army is not trained for policing. We need to understand there's a distinct difference between policing for internal security purposes. There's a distinct difference between policing and using tools of coercion. The army falls into the tools of coercion bit. Again, coming to the north. Northern Nigeria is 79%, the old northern region, 79% of Nigeria's land area. This area is full of a lot of ungoverned space, a lot. We don't have a handle on that. We've never had a handle on that. How do you bring law and order into all of these ungoverned spaces? We have so many tracts of land where people are basically free to live as they will without any interference from the government.
Are you saying that in the northern part of Nigeria, it's too big for us to manage? Is that in simple
We've proven
terms?
to be bad managers of pretty much everything. So yes, it's too big for us to manage. Then you have the transhumance thing where people are free to move in and out. We are signatories to the ECOWAS transhumance protocol. So people are free to move in and out, and we've not been able to properly trying to find the word here, properly document who these people are. So there is nothing that prevents somebody from coming in from Birnin Koni in Niger, committing havoc in Bakolari in Zamfara, and then strolling back to Birnin Koni. Finally, at this point in time, is the fact that we've allowed impunity to become our watchword. There are so many things where the Nigerian state ought to bring justice to bear The Nigerian state failed spectacularly to do so. Essentially, the message being passed is, oh, feel free to go on, feel free to do so. And that's one of the things take, for example, the elections.
Yes.
In the period from the start of campaign till the last governorship rerun election, quite hundreds of people were killed. Have you heard of one case, just one, of prosecution? So the message,
I was reading a report last week about the fact that we haven't seen any. We've called for. We have said that there was the widespread violence, but we haven't seen one conviction, one prosecution.
So when you have something like that, essentially you're telling people it's okay to be violent.
All right. Thank you very much, Cheta. I hope this is not the case, but very good analysis right there.
We have a message on WhatsApp from Chika again and from Unilag. He says it's hard to believe that this is true. It's even more difficult to come to terms that you're no more Adora, your country Nigeria failed you when you needed her the most. Comments coming in. Send messages to WhatsApp 0809 444 981.
Tunde, I'll come back to you for this next story. Woman arrested for allegedly trying to smuggle drugs into prison. Now, the intelligence unit of the Nigerian Prison Service attached to Kano Central Prison have released a report talking about how they intercepted a female visitor, the name Rifkato Anthony, for attempting to smuggle 39 wraps of Indian hemp into the prison. Very quickly, please take us to the story.
Supposedly given to her by one, thank God. Interesting. So the question here is she mule or baron? She claims not to have known what it is.
So mule is a carrier, baron is a carrier.
The boss. So is she a pawn or or the kingpin or the she claims not to have known what was inside the consignment, which is...
Although she hid it, though. She doesn't know.
But she may not have hid it herself. She may have been given a package, also. The there are levels to intelligence. And let's not use our own levels to determine or dictate what others are. But unfortunately, the truth is...
arrogant.
I apologize. However, there is no... ignorance is not an excuse, right? Even in law and in faith, right? You can't say, God, sorry, I didn't know. The crime is a crime. However, there's a lot of smuggling that goes on in the prisons, huge amounts, from all sorts of things. For those who've had the opportunity to visit on the inside or be held for a few hours or minutes inside, we know that all sorts of things go into prison, from cell phones to whatever. It's global. It's not
peculiar to Nigeria.
Yes, it's global, but I would like to see that our prison systems work. That's reaching high to say our prison systems work a bit more. The only other thing is the story points out and says that drugs and other things getting into the prisons will be it seems like there's a new focus on that, trying to bring orderliness to it, and that it hampers the prisons as a reformatory process or a place, and that's almost laughable. In Nigeria, it's not non-reformatory. It's a cage.
We talked about
barely
this.
Suitable for the numbers and people that are in there, but it's good.
It's good news. The Controller General of Prisons, Jafar Ahmed, had said that they were dismissed prison personnel who were found to be aiding and abetting. So that's a good move.
That's why I said it's a renewed focus. It's just
it's
token. It's token, and many of them don't get fed.
And we know a number of people who have visited the prisons with gifts, with donations, and it doesn't get to the end users.
Beyond that, I know cases of people going to go and sign off vouchers that they delivered food to prisoners and no food was taken. Right? The system is.
So they couldn't just be that this woman didn't follow the system. That's why.
No. So it's one of two things. Either she didn't follow, laid down protocol and procedure, and we know what that is. Or it's time to make.
I don't like this coded.
It exposes something that might have been going wrong. Going on for a while.
Exactly. Or it's time to just pick a scapegoat. That time when we just sweep things under the carpet and make it look like we're doing something.
There could be a big expose here. Drug cartel in prison. People who are making a lot of money from this business. I'm glad that this is coming up here.
Indian hemp. I beg they should. The world is trying to do. I like the thing. We should move on.
Okay, let's move on to our next story, Uade. following Tunde's suggestion, we move on. Federal government states now in arrears of new minimum wage, says Ngige. So the Minister of Labour and Employment, Senator Chris Ngige, told a select group of journalists yesterday that due to the delay in implementing the new scheme, the arrears would continue to pile up until the federal and state governments do so. Please take us to this story.
Just going through the story, you know that this was bound to happen. It sets a minimum wage. First and foremost, before I even go into the new minimum wage, these are states that have not been able to pay the old minimum wage, and we're going to the new minimum wage. Ngige says that the law was passed on April 18, but the dynamics,
with immediate effect to take place.
But the dynamics for the law to work, the template that they are going to use to do everything, they are still working on it. So it's bound to happen. So if Cheta was on 18,000 before and I pay him 30,000, and I was on just an example.
Cheta, if the operative word, Uade, please
and
go on.
Ayo was on 30,000 on a next level, and the template is not ready to calculate Ayo's new salary. Well, it's bound to happen, and this is what is happening. If you were doing negotiations with labor and all the things that you require to set out the system for payment of the new minimum wage has not been put in place, then these things are bound to happen. And that's what's happening. States will, like I said, states that have not been able to pay 18,000 from the first day, they were complaining about the what's it called. But it just goes to show the depth of the need for more states to generate IGR towards paying a lot of all these things. Because if states were more independent rather than depending on the center for monies every month, negotiating with your labor force would be something that you can do independently. It happens all over the world, so it's not just in Nigeria. So more and more states should start looking at how do I improve the lots of my civil service without having to depend on government, without having to depend on government to increase minimum wage. So even if you're increasing minimum wage, you're probably just increasing it to a point where I was 6 months or a year ago.
All right, thank you very much. I think what's a bit concerning about this article is that they're just blame games, throwing darts, but no solution as to how we're going to be able to achieve the payment of 30,000 naira as minimum wage.
If you don't have a template from the beginning, I don't know how you want the states to start paying.
All right.
The day you set the law, it's not possible.
Thank you.
All right, let's move on now to this story from Premium Times. The headline reads, Hunger, rainstorm kill 11 villagers after forced evacuation by Nigerian military, according to survivors. Now, this affected an area of Borno State, Damboa village, precisely. They said in this report that the Nigerian army had ordered the residents of Sabongari area, a community that's 150 kilometers west of Maiduguri, to evacuate the village ahead of a special military operation. This was done. There seemed from this report not to be an arrangement for where the villagers were going to stay. They were moved without any time given to them to prepare to move to an IDP camp. They stood in the rain. Cheta, please take us through this story, especially highlighting how they were affected, how the number of people, sadly, including children, that lost their lives, and who's to be held responsible for this, if any.
First things first, God rest the dead.
Amen.
So I've been to Maiduguri, I've been to Damboa, and the distance between Maiduguri and Damboa is about 88 kilometers. But that 88 kilometers took us about 3-4 hours because we had to move slowly. That area is an area that quite a lot of Shekau's people, the Shekau faction of Boko Haram, are, if not necessarily in control of, they can appear at any time. Now, Damboa is south of Maiduguri. Now, the story says that Sabongari is 150 kilometers west of Maiduguri. So if you triangulate that distance, it means that the distance between Damboa and Sabongari is about 174 kilometers. The roads are not that great. They provided buses to move these people through this first march. And first matches throughout history, they've never quite worked. They never quite, when you don't plan for people. So the problem, or one of the things, and it's clear from the way the spokesman of that's Muhammad Ali, who spoke to Premium Times. It's clear that there's an underlying anger because there was a rainstorm, and during that rainstorm, soldiers panicked and began shooting. So they injured a woman and they killed a child.
Stray bullets.
We'll call it stray bullets, but they were shooting.
Mm.
Now, again, he pointed out that they had to give up their fasting. Remember, we're still in the Ramadan.
Yes.
They had to give up their fasting due to a lack of food. As in, you cannot fast during the day and then there's nothing for you to eat at night, which is what has happened when they got to the IDP camp. To a Muslim, that means a whole lot. It means a whole lot. You are forcing me to break my fast against the instructions, one of the 5 pillars of Islam. Then you expect these people, when ISWAP come with their renewed hearts and mind program, which is what ISWAP have been. They've been doing that quite a lot. We have quite a number of reports of people willingly leaving the Nigerian state and going to ISWAP territory. What do you expect these people to do when the Nigerian state is not showing any human compassion? This story is just a very good window into how incompetently this insurgency has been prosecuted from the Nigerian side. And scratch the surface, there are many stories that are worse than this.
Unfortunately, we do not have any reports as to why this operation was carried out. Obviously, we see that it's been.
They said they wanted to do an operation against the Shekau faction.
Right.
Yeah.
Without warning, without preparations, especially for the people. Very unfortunate. Let's move on now to this next story, and this one is for you, Uade. Looking at the state of schools, especially public primary schools in Nigeria. Today is Children's Day. I don't know if we are going to be happy about that, especially as the Nigerian Union of Teachers has highlighted some problematic areas, especially with public schools, infrastructural deficits, highlighting areas like Bauchi, Benue, Cross River, Gombe, Ekiti, Imo, Plateau, Enugu, and Osun states as cases in points. But let's look at this situation, because we know that the Universal Basic Education program provides for these deficiencies in terms of infrastructure, should, right? And then we ask the question, really, which one should get precedence? Which one should get the most attention? Is it the professionalism, or is it the level of training teachers should get, or the infrastructure, really? But let's look at this story, having this.
Valentine, thanks. First, I'm a product of public schools, and I'm sitting here today analyzing on Freshly Pressed. Infrastructure, yes, we do need infrastructure. Why? Basic amenities for children to most especially ease themselves, toilets and all. But the focus so much on infrastructure and the dilapidation of the level of dilapidation of infrastructure in Nigerian public schools is amazing. I won't mention the name of the school, but there's a school where you have like the school management board building right next to the school. The same building that was taken away from the school that houses the school's management board. The school's management board's office looks brand new every year, and the building that is meant to house the children is gone. No windows, nothing, no chairs. But the other thing about it is, yes, we need the infrastructure, but also we also need to have more and more teachers who will teach these children. Like we were talking downstairs, and I said a lot of our parents played under a tree. Yeah. And they became who they are today.
They became professors, doctors.
Everything. So the focus on education, for me, every time you talk about infrastructure, building a house, the cost of building a house is enough to teach maybe 100 children. So what are the basic things that we need to put in place to ensure there is enough shelter? Is it like in the 70s when Jakonde built his so-called sheds? I know the number of Lagosians who today are who they are because they went to schools in those sheds, and they are better off for it. I really don't know. Today's Children's Day, as a product of a public school, I feel very sad about this.
But what does the future hold? I mean, I know we are going to be pessimistic about this, but then again,
in the age of technology, the future is bright for education. How do we put these things into play? They are talking about technology from the kids need to learn how to write a program. The kids need to learn how to read. Basically, that's where you start from. Imagination starts from reading, and reading far and wide. If today we're not doing that, we don't have I see adverts of people going around in buses as libraries, but we don't have a technology library that students can get access to free to read different things and improve themselves. The future is bright if we invest in the right places.
And invest wisely, and do not squander the money meant to develop such schools and train the teachers.
All right, we'll take one comment here from Nedu. Nedu on WhatsApp says there are many things which as a people we systematically failing. Our safety culture is one of them and costs us lives every day. I pass through public construction sites every day with metal rods protruding everywhere and dangerous pits on the sites. There are no caution signs and tapes anywhere to create a safety barrier around them. This is what leads to that. This is what led to that young woman's death and many others.
Absolutely.
Let's take on this next story. We've been following this very closely for the past 2 weeks or more, but highlighting this issue last week on Freshly Pressed. Now we're coming to talk again on this. Now, we're hoping, as at the time we treated it last week, that the sports minister was going to probably refund the money somehow, maybe by government intervention, but he's adamant, or seems adamant by this Premium Times report, by saying that, or accusing the International Association of Athletics Federation, IAF, of blackmail after the international body erroneously overpaid 130,000 naira, $1,000, what am I saying, into the sports ministry. What are your thoughts on this? We're asking about consequences last week, but the blame game is being traded back and forth. Cheta?
I don't understand what you mean when you said you were hoping. It's, okay, I wasn't around that last week, otherwise I would have given you enough upside the head to bring you back to reality.
Cheta, analyze the story quickly.
See, let's quote Dalong directly. Why did IAAF take 2 months to realize that it was a mistake? I think it is a calculated attempt to diminish and destroy Nigerian athletics. That singular quote already tells you the man's mindset. Bear in mind that the IAAF is a huge bureaucracy, so such things could get lost in the system for a while. I mean, there's something that I've been trying to get from a bureaucracy in another country. This is one of the most efficient countries, but it took a while. It's just that, and that's the way bureaucracies work. Now, let us talk about who wants to destroy Nigerian athletics. Maybe you want to listen to this name, Grace Anigbata, and hear that name, because when she wins gold medals for Qatar or Bahrain, let us understand. At the age of 18, she won the trials with Dalong as sports minister. She won the trials for the high jump event to prepare for the Rio Olympics. And they told her, you can't go to Rio because you're too young. Your time will come. And Dalong did nothing. And instead, we carried Doreen, I've forgotten her, so it doesn't matter, who is an old cargo. And of course, she didn't even get out of the first round in the Rio Olympics. And Dalong did nothing. Remember the embarrassment of a Japanese doctor wanting to paying the Super Eagles for their good performance in that same Rio Olympics, and Dalong and his cronies wanting to
get a bit of the money.
No, they wanted him to pay the money to them so that they will shave off something. And this is the mindset of these people. What has happened here is that the money has come, and it is with
No, but the thing is, why is the sports minister being enabled or being allowed to embarrass the country this much for this long?
For years, to be honest.
Yes.
I mean,
why?
Look,
you are saying that he's being enabled to embarrass the country.
Yes, because why doesn't anyone call him?
He is saying that IAAF is trying to embarrass the country.
Is it that his cap and his get up?
You're asking the wrong question, Tunde.
So what should be the right question, Cheta?
Why is IAF trying to embarrass the country?
Exactly. The money, his statement is
But let's get something serious, very straight here. The money in the matter is $130,000. If you convert it to naira at the prevailing rate, it's 54 million naira. If you convert it at the official rate, it's 49 million naira. That is what this. I think this is the.
Excuse me.
Very good that they're embarrassing us on top.
We need to move on. The sports
Cheta,
ministry
what doesn't
gets
belong to
budgetary
you doesn't
allocation
belong
from
to
government.
you.
What is this money for?
Dalong's version is simply his version of Nafata Fata, no kill anybody.
Yes.
You know, we chopped the money.
We chopped,
no,
and
we
that's
have not
it.
killed
And we are
anybody.
not.
You are
We'll
talking
return it when we
own.
He's
want
a
to.
Nigerian government official. He can do whatever he wants. This is the impunity I was talking about
Yes,
in
I
the
was
first
speaking
story.
about
Let's
earlier
wrap
on.
it up
So-
very quickly for this on this last story, Tunde. Please touch on this one in a few seconds. From the Guardian newspaper, Central Bank of Nigeria blows halt on policy rigours, plans jungle approach.
Okay, so this talk, I don't like the headline because I mean when it says jungle approach,
Very
it's
dramatic,
almost
yeah.
no. Beyond that, it's saying, look, okay, so the story is about saying that we have had to take the unconventional routes to solving our problems, and which are very, how does it describe, a heterodox approach as opposed to the conventional methods as followed by IMF and a bunch of other things, which makes sense. Extraordinary situations require extraordinary measures, and that's what we've done, especially with our monetary policy, you know, and getting stability in that regard. Even if not, you know, we haven't been as successful on the fiscal side. Now, he also points out why that's the case. You know, when you increase tariffs, the effect is supposed to spur, you know, domestic industries. So tomato was one example. They banned importation of tomato puree, and the expectation is suddenly that the tomato industry and the processing industry will suddenly boom. But that's not the case. They created, and they point this out, that they failed in that regard because it just creates an industry for smugglers. And that's just one example where the gaps in the system and structure can hamper fiscal policy to drive economic growth. So we need to sort out the building blocks.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Tunde. Unfortunately, that's all we can take this morning on Freshly Pressed. But a big thanks to our analysts this morning, Tunde Abikus, Cheta Cheksan, of course, Uade Ahimie, We Inc. Niger 2017. We'll have to go on a break right now. Join us again tomorrow morning, 7:30. We're not going anywhere. Still to come, 8:15. It's The Locker Room with Tega.
So, right,
It's a
well,
clown.
a bit on the